The moon landing conspiracy. What they don't want you to ask. The year is 1969. The world holds its breath. Millions gather around televisions, watching grainy black and white footage. A human being, Neil Armstrong, steps onto the lunar surface. One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Or was it? For over 5 decades, that iconic moment has been etched into history as humanity's greatest achievement. But what if it was all a meticulously crafted deception? What if the greatest show on Earth never left Earth? For a vocal, persistent segment of the population, the moon landing was a hoax, a spectacular piece of Cold War propaganda staged in a Hollywood studio. They argue that the technological challenges were too immense, the geopolitical stakes too high, and the evidence riddled with inconsistencies. And once you start looking, once you start asking the questions they don't want you to ask, it becomes incredibly difficult to unsee some of the unsettling detail. Let's start with the flag. That famous image of Buzz Aldrin saluting the American flag on the airless moon. Why is it waving? There's no wind on the moon, a vacuum. Proponents of the hoax theory point to this as immediate proof of a terrestrial breeze. NASA's official explanation is that the flag was mounted on a telescopic pole with a horizontal bar to make it fly proudly, and the ripples are from it being folded and unfolded. But look closely. Does it look merely wrinkled or truly as if caught in a gentle gust? It's the first ripple in a sea of doubt. Then there's the distinct lack of stars in any of the Apollo photographs. When Armstrong and Aldrin gazed up from the lunar surface, they should have seen a dazzling, unfiltered canvas of stars, far brighter and more numerous than from Earth. Yet, every single photograph shows a perfectly black sky. NASA claims the lunar surface and the astronauts' white suits were so brightly lit by the sun that the camera's exposure settings had to be adjusted, making the faint light from distant stars invisible. But for a mission that defined humanity's reach into the cosmos, isn't it a little odd to miss out on capturing the very essence of space itself? The shadows cast on the lunar surface also raise eyebrows. In many photographs, parallel objects appear to cast shadows that are not parallel, almost as if there are multiple light sources. With the sun as the only light source on the moon, all shadows should be perfectly parallel. This seemingly minor detail leads skeptics to suggest multiple artificial light sources, just like on a film set. NASA's counter. The perspective of the camera and the irregular lunar terrain can create optical illusion. But for a scientific mission, are we expected to simply accept optical illusions as explanations for fundamental photographic inconsistencies? What about the radiation? The Earth is protected by the Van Allen belts, 2 layers of charged particles held in place by Earth's magnetic field. To reach the moon, astronauts had to pass through these belts. Scientists have warned that the radiation levels inside these belts are lethal, far too high for human exposure, even for a brief pass-through. How did the Apollo astronauts survive this deadly gauntlet in their thin spacecraft? NASA insists the spacecraft traveled through the thinnest parts of the belts at high speed, minimizing exposure, and that the shielding was sufficient. But even with their explanation, the sheer audacity of passing through what many still consider a radiation death trap remains a chilling point for skeptics. And where are the landing craters? When the lunar module descended, its powerful engines should have kicked up a massive cloud of dust and left a significant crater directly beneath it. Yet in the photographs, the landing site appears pristine, with only footprints. There's no visible crater, no massive displacement of regolith from a rocket engine firing directly onto the surface. NASA explains that the lunar regolith is very compact, and the engine blast was spread out, not focused, creating more of a scouring effect than a crater. But for something that weighed thousands of pounds descending with powerful thrust, the almost undisturbed surface seems eerily convenient. These are just a few of the glaring questions. The sheer scale of the operation, the perfect execution under immense pressure, the constant pressure of the space race with the Soviet Union, all fuel the suspicion. Was it truly a triumph of human ingenuity or the ultimate illusion designed to win the hearts and minds of the world? The official story is clear, but the shadows on the moon and in the evidence continue to lengthen. The questions surrounding the moon landing do not stop with flags and shadows. Dig deeper, and you encounter an array of technical anomalies and convenient disappearances that only intensify the doubts. Take the photographic evidence itself. Beyond the lack of stars and strange shadows, many critics point to crosshairs that appear behind objects in some photos. These crosshairs, etched onto the camera lenses for calibration, should always be in front of everything captured. When they appear behind an object, it suggests manipulation, perhaps even cut-and-paste editing, implying a staged scene where foreground objects were added later. NASA explains this as an optical anomaly caused by overexposure, where bright white objects can burn out the thin lines of the crosshairs. But for photographic evidence of such a monumental event, such convenient anomalies are difficult to simply dismiss. What about the extraordinary heat? The lunar surface during the day can reach temperatures of over 250 degrees Fahrenheit and drop to minus 250 degrees Fahrenheit at night. The cameras, film, and delicate equipment used by the astronauts should have melted or frozen. How did they function perfectly in such extreme conditions? NASA counters that the equipment was specially designed, shielded, and insulated, and that the missions were timed to avoid the most extreme temperatures. Yet, even with specialized gear, the flawless operation of sensitive electronics and film in such a hostile environment stretches credulity for many. And the moon rocks brought back by Apollo missions are presented as irrefutable proof. But how do we know they're from the moon? Skeptics highlight that moon rocks look suspiciously similar to meteorites found on Earth that are believed to originate from the moon. Could these moon rocks have been conveniently sourced from terrestrial meteorites or even fabricated? The scientific community dismisses this, pointing to unique isotopic compositions in the Apollo samples that are impossible to replicate or find naturally on Earth in such quantities. But without a direct, verifiable trip to the moon, the ultimate origin of these rocks remains, for some, a matter of faith in authority. Then there is the issue of the missing data. Over 700 boxes of original moon landing tapes containing telemetry data and high-quality recordings mysteriously went missing from NASA archives. They were either erased, recorded over, or simply cannot be found. NASA's official statement in 2009 acknowledged the loss, citing budgetary constraints and the common practice of reusing tapes during that era. But for an event of such historical magnitude, the disappearance of crucial original data feels less like an oversight and more like a deliberate act of concealment. Why destroy or lose the definitive proof of humanity's greatest journey? And the deaths. A number of key personnel involved in the Apollo program died under mysterious or unusual circumstances before or during the missions. From astronauts to engineers, a surprising number of individuals connected to the program met untimely ends. While each case has an official explanation, the sheer cluster of tragedies fuels the idea of a deliberate silencing, an attempt to prevent potential whistleblowers from revealing the truth. Is it merely tragic coincidence, or a grim reflection of the stakes involved in maintaining such a colossal secret? Finally, consider the motivation. The Cold War was not just a military conflict, it was a battle for hearts and minds, a propaganda war on a global scale. The Soviets had launched Sputnik, putting the first satellite and then the first human in space. America desperately needed a definitive victory, a monumental achievement to prove its technological and ideological superiority. A staged moon landing would have been the ultimate psychological weapon, a powerful message to the world that America could achieve the impossible, even if it meant faking it. The very notion that a secret of this magnitude could be kept by thousands of people for decades is often cited as the ultimate refutation of the hoax theory. But history is littered with examples of vast government deceptions, from Project Mockingbird to Operation Northwoods. The compartmentalization of information, the fear of reprisal, and the unwavering loyalty to national security can compel many to keep silent. The evidence for a moon landing is substantial, from laser reflectors left on the moon by Apollo missions that we can still bounce lasers off today, to photographs from modern lunar orbiters showing the actual landing sites. But for those who question, these pieces of evidence often lead to more questions, pushing them further into the rabbit hole. The debate persists because the consequences of a hoax would be astronomical. It would shatter trust in institutions, redefine our understanding of history, and expose a level of government deception almost beyond comprehension. The official narrative demands our belief, but what if, in our eagerness to believe in humanity's triumph, we stopped asking the vital questions? What if they don't want us to ask?